Okay, so in this video I want to talk about how to do math in your head quickly during games, which is going to really help you predict the outcome of combats and help you in a lot of situations. Now, one of the main differences between beginners and average to good players is the ability to correctly predict the outcome of combats. So that's what we're going to go over in this video. One of the main aspects to this game is the ability to create favorable combats. Okay, so what I'm talking about is combats that you know you're going to win, and being able to correctly predict what's going to happen after the combat. Is my unit going to stick, or is my unit going to be able to overrun into another unit, or maybe even run the unit down and get points? That's what I'm talking about. We want to create these combats that'll get us an advantage over opponent and give us a favorable point swing so that we can win the game. You see, a new player, often they will be surprised at what happens after a combat, after the combat resolution, and unexpected things will happen. They won't really expect the conclusion of the combat, and then they will lose based on that result. So what we want to do is be able to predict what's going to happen in each combat that we decide to create. Now here I set up a situation which I find is a pretty good example of what I'm talking about. So what we have here is a unit of 35 scraplings, and they are going to be on the same army with these tribesmen, or they could be mercenaries, they could be really anything. Just here is a very, very scary unit, and here is a tar pit. Okay, so this unit can do a lot of damage and be a very strong threat, and this one is just there to hold up other units. Now on this army, which is the other side, we have 8 bruisers. Okay, that's it. Just a very simple situation that I want to set up for you guys. Right here we have the objective, and it's the top of turn 6, and it's the bruisers' turn to go. So what we want to decide here is, do we want to risk charging the scraplings and possibly pursuing or overrunning so that we're within 6 inches of the objective and that we can, win the game or even tie the objective? Okay, and at the same time, we don't want to risk our unit to that tribesman unit over there, because our unit maybe is too expensive and is not worth the risk. If we were to lose our unit, then we would give up a lot of points. So we want to make sure that we capture that objective without losing our unit. Okay, so in order to decide, we have to do a little bit of math to figure out if this combat is in our favor or not. So first we have to understand what are the units we're dealing with, and what they have, what they are equipped with, and the damage output that they are able to put out against that other unit. So here we have 8 bruisers, that's it, just 8 bruisers, full command, and no special banners or anything. Right here we have 35 scraplings equipped with just a sword and board, so just shield, and no banners or anything, that's it. And here's the objective. Could be for secure target or even hold the ground. So that's it. And those tribesmen are just, they could be anything. Tribesmen, mercenaries, anything. Any scary unit that could deal a lot of damage. So this charge is quite an easy charge. We can go ahead and charge the scraplings. And that would put us somewhere like this. Now, if we stick here and this combat sticks us, we're too far away from the objective. So ideally what we would want is to do enough damage to the scraplings that we can pursue. Okay, so pursue this way far enough that we can get close to that objective. What we want to avoid is the following situation. This combat blocks us, and then we have to choose to make a combat reform like this. Actually, that's an illegal combat reform because you're taking away models from combat, but what we want to avoid is really sticking here and then getting flank charged by that unit right there. Okay, so as you can see right here by my laser, if this combat sticks, that big tribesman unit is going to be able to get a flank charge on our bruisers, and then we're going to lose our unit and gain nothing for our troubles. So what we want is we want to do enough damage to the scraplings that the bruisers can overrun or pursue out of the arc of sight of those tribesmen and then be safe from their counterattack. Now remember, this is top of turn 6, so if we can get close to that treasure over there, that objective, then the tribesman unit cannot charge us on their last turn, and then even if they try to get close to the objective, it might not even be enough. So that's what we want, okay? We would just want to be safe from that dangerous unit and at the same time capture that objective. So we need to correctly predict how much damage we can do to those scraplings in order to get through them and then get to the objective. So one thing we have to watch out for is this is what we call a tar pit unit. So they're relying on the steadfast rule to hold up other units. So what we have is 35 scraplings with 7 ranks, and then over here we might have a general or a BSB, which makes them even more effective. But even if they didn't have that, they would be on a discipline 6. Okay, so that is still in our favor, but we want to minimize our chances. So we don't want them having steadfast. What we want to do is do enough damage to the scraplings that they cannot use the steadfast rule. So let's go ahead and do some math, and then we'll figure out if it's possible or even if it's a good decision to create this combat. Because like I said, our other idea, okay, since it's our last turn, what we can do is just move backwards like this and not let the enemy charge us, and then that'll be the end of the game, and those scraplings there will win the objective, and that's it. Okay, so they will win the objective, but at least we will not lose our unit. Okay, because like I said, worst case scenario, come over here, the scraplings hold, then we get flank charged by the tribesmen in their last turn, and then we lose our unit and the enemy has the objective. That is the worst case scenario. Okay, the best case scenario, come over here, we break the scraplings, we pursue, get the objective. Okay, the middle ground scenario, okay, the conservative, is you just fall backwards a little bit and then you just end the game right there. You give up the objective, but at least you don't lose your unit. So what we have to decide is this combat in our favor? Is it going to allow us to have the best possible case scenario, or is it just going to make things worse for us at this point? Okay, so I'm going to show you guys some basic probabilities, and then we'll come back to this after. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about averages and odds and things like that. So in this game we use D6s. The dice has 6 faces, and what we need to know is the odds of rolling certain values. So when we mean 1 up, we mean anything with 1 or more. 2 up means either a 2, a 3, a 4, 5, or 6, so anything but a 1, etc. Okay, so a 6 plus would mean just a 6, for example, and a 4 plus would mean a 4, a 5, or a 6. So based on that, we know the different odds of the successful faces divided by the total faces, so 6, and so we have these results right here. So the odds of rolling 1 up, obviously a 1, 2 up, 5 out of 6, etc. Okay, so here you have these values, and we're going to use these to correctly predict how much damage each unit is going to do. So I'll be back with you once we have different unit stats. Okay, here we go. So we have the unit profiles for bruisers and scraplings. Now bruisers are equipped with great weapons and the scraplings have shields. Now the bruisers charge, so they will gain charging momentum +1 agility, but it won't matter because they have great weapons anyways. So we're going to go ahead and do all their impact hits first, and then the scraplings will respond with their attacks, and then the bruisers can go with their regular attacks, and then the stomps at the end. Okay, so let's go ahead and do the impact hits for the bruisers. So impact hits always hit at initiative 10, so we do that first. Ogres get 2 impact hits per ogre in the front rank. That's how it works. So that will be 8 impact hits. They're going to be wounding on 3+ because it's strength 4 on res 3, so that's why I multiply there by the 2/3. And then there will be no save, so I don't have to do any more multipliers because scraplings only have a 6-up save from their shields, and it is AP 1. So as you can see, I did 8 times 2/3, and normally that's 16 out of 3, but because we're in a game and we want to do really quick calculations, we're going to round that to 15 out of 3 because 15 is divisible by 3, and that's an easy 5 right there. So that's a really quick way of mathing that out. Okay, so now we'll do the scraplings with their attacks. They're offense 3 on offense 2 on defense 3 from the Bruisers, so that's 4 up to hit. They're 5 up to wound because it's strength 3 on res 4. And then the Bruisers will get their 5 up armor save because Scraplings don't have any AP. And they will have 11 attacks from their 10 regular attacks from the 2 front ranks, plus 1 from the champion. So we're going to go ahead and do that, multiplied by 1/2 for the 4 up, multiplied by 1/3 for the 5 up. And then over here we have to multiply by 1 minus 1/3 because we don't want to know the odds of the Bruisers making their armor saves. We want to know the odds of them failing the armor save. So whenever you need the odds of something failing, it's 1 minus the odds of succeeding, okay? So we're going to go ahead and simplify this. So the 11, we're going to convert it to 10 because it's easier to do math in our heads. And then the 1/2 here will cancel out with the 2/3 in that big bracket. And then we'll just be left with 1/3 times 1/3, which is 1 over 9. And 10 out of 9 is approximately 1 wound. So there you go. The Scraplings will do 1 wound. Okay, now we're going to go ahead and do the Bruiser attack. So they're offense 3 and Scraplings are defense 2. So that means normally they would be hitting on 3+. But because the Scraplings are sword and board, so they just have shield, they're going to have the parry rule, which means the Bruisers are limited to 4 up to hit. So that's why you see the 1/2 in there. It's going to be 2 up to wound because it is a strength 6 hit on res 3, so that is a 2 up. So that's why you see the 5 over 6. And there will be no save because obviously Bruisers are AP 3 and Scraplings have only a 6 up armor save. So they will get 25 attacks because they are 4 wide and 3 attacks each, and they can attack from 2 ranks, so that would be normally 24, but plus 1 for the champion. That's why I see those 25 attacks right there. Multiplied by 1/2, and then times 5 over 6. So we can go ahead and take the 25 and convert it to 24 to make the math easier. We multiply by 1/2, that's easy, that's 12. And then we just have 12 times 5 over 6. And we know that 12 times 5 is 60, so 60 over 6 is just 10 wounds. Okay, next up, the Bruisers have their stomps, and they hit automatically. They get 1 stomp per model in base contact, so that will be 4 stomps. They will hit automatically, so no multipliers there. 3 up to wound because it's strength 4 on res 3. And there will be no armor save because, again, it's AP 1, and the Scraplings only have a 6 up save. So we take those 4 stomps, multiply by 2/3 for the 3 up. And there's no multiplier here because there's no save, so that will make it 8 out of 3, but we like to simplify things, so we'll make it 9 out of 3 so that it's a nice number, and that makes it 3 wounds. Okay, so let's talk about the result of the combat. So how did this go? Well, the Scraplings only managed 1 wound, so we can just neglect that. It's all about how much damage the Bruisers did. So they went ahead and did 18 wounds in total. So what we can conclude from this is that the Scraplings are going to be steadfast because they started out with 35 models, and 35 minus 18 is 17, and 17 is greater than 15 anyway, so Scraplings will be left with 3 ranks to the 2 ranks from the Bruisers, so they will be steadfast, alright? The Bruisers would have needed to kill at least 9 more, I think. So there you go. So what we can conclude is that this combat is very dicey, and you should really only do it if you're feeling very lucky, or if you want to take a big risk for some reason. But if you ask my opinion, I wouldn't declare this charge because I don't think the Bruisers can do enough damage. Now, of course, we didn't take into account magic, or you know, you can have things like Rod of Battle that can increase the number of hits, or you can give them, the Rampager's Chain that can reroll your stomps. Different effects like that, and of course when you're trying to predict outcomes, you will have to take those spell effects into account, but I just did a simple combat to explain it to you guys. But once you get used to doing the math like this, you'll be able to do it really quickly during a game, especially if you do it during the opponent's turn. It's going to be very, very useful for you, okay? Remember, guys, in order to do it faster, what you want to do, you always want to round the numbers, okay? If you have complicated numbers like 13 or 27, just round those down to 26 and 12 to make math easier. We don't need to know exactly how many wounds, we just need a rough idea. And as well, the most important rule, guys, when you're doing this, you want to know exactly every single special rule of every unit, okay? This can get a bit complicated with special units, but for example, Infernal Dwarfs, they have a unit, the Immortals, that can half the strength from impact hits, so you're going to have to take that into account. So make sure you ask your opponent what rules he has on his unit, and especially the magic, if he has any augments, or debuffs for your own unit. Okay. It's also important to note that the agility value must be taken into account. In some combats, it matters more than others. For example, if the Bruisers were fighting against elves, and elves will obviously swing first. So the Bruisers need to make sure they have enough in the unit to soak up the damage so that they can get their full output. If the elves kill enough Bruisers, then that's going to lower the number of attacks that they're going to be able to put out when it's their turn to attack. So you will have to take the agilities into account. So there you go. This is a video on how to do quick calculations so you can make better decisions during the game. I hope you like this kind of stuff. If you want to see more, let me know. These days I've been pretty busy watching the soccer or football games on the World Cup. So Belgium just beat England today, and tomorrow I'm really excited to see the final, France versus Croatia. I'm for France because I'm French. So there you go.